أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد. Thank you everyone for coming. Today we are continuing our discussion on the 16th word. Last time we met, we started talking about the word, but we spent all of the time discussing the verse stated here. I will go ahead and read it. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Indeed, his command when he wills a thing is be, and it is. So glory be unto him in whose hand is the dominion of all things, and to him will you all be brought back. It was explained last time that the translation might give an impression about the verse that is not truly reflective of its meaning. So we talked a lot about what does command mean, what does the word be and it, or the phrase be and it is mean. We also had questions about what does being brought back mean. So if this is your first time listening to this, I would really encourage listening to the last discussion, just because that understanding the verse and the words and the implications of reading the verse in English instead of Arabic might have an effect on our understanding. But that's just my opinion. However, today, what I think we can do is read the first page and the beginning of the next page of this word, understand the analogy provided in the second page, and then go back to the first page. I'm only doing this, or I'm only suggesting this because I found that the first page was very difficult to understand without the analogy. So I'm hoping that understanding the analogy will make this an easier read for us. But of course, some of you might find that the first page is pretty clear, it's pretty understandable. So please, please, please share your thoughts or reflections or understandings, because it will help us all, inshallah. All right, I will start reading. This word was written to afford insight and understanding to my blind soul by pointing out 4 rays from the light of the above verse, to dispel the darkness and afford me certainty. Oh, let's see how will that happen. The first ray he is referring to: "O my ignorant soul, you say the oneness of the divine essence together with the universality of the divine acts, the unity of Almighty God's person together with his unassisted comprehensive dominicality, his singleness together with his unshared all-embracing disposal, his being beyond space and yet present everywhere, his infinite exaltedness together with being close to all things, and his being one and yet himself holding all matters in his hand." You guys notice the pattern so far? That there's 2 qualities that seem to be not exactly the same, or some similarity but very different, are brought together, and these qualities are brought together to describe one being, or the oneness of a being. The author is saying, okay, my ignorant soul, you're saying that all of this are among the truths of the Quran. Yet, the Quran is all wise, and that which is wise does not impose on the reason things which are unreasonable. This is where it starts to get tricky for me, so please help. And the reason sees an apparent contradiction between these things. I would like an explanation of them which impel the reason to submit. Anything here, anything you see here. Again, we'll come back to it, but if you feel like you've already seen something and understood something, please do share. Okay. The answer. Since that is the way it is, and you want to be certain and reassured, relying on the effulgence of the Quran, we say, the divine name of light has solved many of my difficulties. God willing, it will solve this one too. Choosing the way of comparison, which brings clarity to the mind and luminosity to the heart, like Imam Rabbani, we say, I am neither the night nor a lover of the night. I am a servant of the sun. It is of the sun that I speak. Since comparison is a most brilliant mirror to the Quran's miraculousness, we too shall look at this mystery by means of a comparison. All right, ready for the comparison? It is as follows. Here's where we can pay really close attention to this paragraph. If you understand this paragraph, I feel like we can understand the previous page. Okay, it says, a single person may gain universality by means of various mirrors. Okay, so again, a single person may gain universality by means of various mirrors. So I'm imagining a person, there's a lot of mirrors, and I'm still trying to understand what universality means, so let's keep reading. While being a single individual, he becomes like a universal possessing general qualities. For example, while the sun is a single individual, by means of transparent objects, it becomes so universal, it fills the face of the earth with its images and reflection. Okay, so the example is explaining the previous sentence. A single individual, the example is saying sun, by means of transparent objects. So here the transparent objects are the mirrors. It becomes so universal, it fills the face of the earth with its images and reflections. Okay. It even has so many manifestations as the number of droplets and shining motes. I looked up what motes is, and it just means particle, in case it's new to someone here. Although the sun's heat, light, and the 7 colors in its light comprehend, encompass, and embrace all the things which confront them, all transparent things also hold in the pupils of their eyes the sun's heat and its light and 7 colors together with its image. Excuse me. And they make a throne for them in their hearts. That is to say, with regard to unity, the sun encompasses all the things which confront it. While with regard to oneness, the sun is present together with many of its attributes in everything through a sort of manifestation of its essence. Since we have passed from comparison to a discussion of representation, we shall indicate three of the many sorts of representation which will be a means to understanding this matter. But before we move on, I'd like to make sure that this analogy is understandable or clear. So for me, I understand the example that, okay, there is the sun, there are transparent objects, and the sun's qualities are shown, or okay, I'm not sure if the word shown or reflected is more correct here. I'll use shown for now. Is shown through the transparent objects. But that doesn't mean that the transparent objects do have these qualities. These qualities still remain to the sun or for the sun. Yeah, and that's it. I'll stop here. Questions, reflections, or what did you understand from the analogy? Go ahead, Asim.
Assalamu alaikum. So first of all, the human soul, as he started from the first paragraph, it reminded me on our discussion from the Wednesday class when we were studying the disciples of the Jesus, when they were asking about that although we believe in God and his messengers, but we are not convinced in our heart, we need a satisfied heart to be convinced. So it's like it tells about the human reality, about seeking that satisfaction, that conviction about the absoluteness of God. So there is still some sort of doubt in the human spirit that, okay, yeah, because it starts off with saying, you say this, but I'm not really sure if that is correct or not. So that's a very human condition one can go through. And now here, as you continue with this particular paragraph, the author is trying to make us understand, okay, how do you understand by what absoluteness is? How do you see the unity and oneness? So giving the examples of the sun, where although all the light that is emitted, as he gives examples of through transparent objects, it can fill up the multiple spaces at the same time. So it can address each and every particle, each and every individual, each and every being, and it gains this universality, so to speak. So more how the author is explaining more to the reasoning side, how one can understand the absoluteness of this owner of the universe. So I'm just curious also how, because it brings into my mind the verses from the verses we recently studied, and there the conviction there are multiple ways that the human satisfaction can be there. One is looking at the signs in the universe, and then of course at the time of the prophets, and their challenge was, so there were multiple sorts of miracles that came in to convince people. But in this day and age, I don't think there's any prophet that is going to show us miracles. But the way we look at or perceive the universe should show us the qualities that are being manifested. And that's how I think this author is also presenting that case. Some thoughts that came to me.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Brother Ed.
We are all aware that we have gone through secular education. Although most of us are grown in a believing family atmosphere, we read something, we develop our way of thinking in the education system, but our family doesn't really give us the reason why we should believe whatever they mention about religion or belief. So we are developing a conflicting personality. On the one hand, talking about religion, which seems to be lovable for our feelings, not really very strange to our feelings. Yeah, I want a creator. Yeah, I want some guidance for my feelings. And that is what they say. But it is full of terminologies, concepts we are talking about, which doesn't have any rational background that I can confirm, I can be convinced about. From my side is taking for granted belief and religious way of life, if we practice it. Nowadays, not many people are very welcoming that. And on the other hand, the other side says you have to reason by looking at the consequence or sequences of the events happening in the world and understand what it is, how the things are developing, improving, perfecting by the way of evolving. One of them is very much limited to the reality of this world. The other one is based on feelings that have no conviction. That is why the dilemma we are living in this day and age. Education system conditions our mind to question the things in relation to each other. Here, the season changed, so most of the plants are dying. And here we are aging. That is an inevitable reality of my existence. I have to admit it and live with this understanding and try to enjoy myself as much as possible. And especially the way reason is trained to think in terms of sequences of events. Like we are reading the book. In order to understand the meaning of the book, what we do, we follow the words, which constructs the sentences and then paragraphs. And each word consists of many letters. So we say that is why it's meaningful. Because the words have meaning, sentences have meaning. And that's why I understand, I communicate with the book. It never occurs to us that the sequences of these letters and words and sentences need a conscious author. It never occurs to us. Of course, the book that we are reading represents the universe. We don't say, look, the world is revolving and the sun is there. It doesn't change its position. So when it comes to the place where I am now, it is turned to face the sun, starting facing the sun. That's called morning. Why? Because sun is there and the earth is working, revolving on its around. But we never ask them, how come that it exists? How come then it revolves? How come then the sun is there, happen to be out there? We don't ask them. As we read the book, how come then it is so meaningful? Of course, it is human-made. We say, oh, yeah, it is written by an author. Yeah, about the universe. We don't ask when it comes to analyzing the matter and what's happening in this world. Plants are growing, animals are coming into existence and then living and getting aged and then dying. That's how it is. We took it for granted. But we never pay attention that the universe, the way it is, if you like, written, given existence, is innumerably more meaningful than the universe. If we want to specialize in any matter, how small or how big it is, there is no end to get the meaning in its existence. We don't question this. How come it came? We say, oh, it is how it is. We found it. But when it comes to human-made things, we say, this is the book. But it must be written by someone. Why do you say that? I mean, I know that the books are written by some authors or by some conscious beings. How about the universe? Oh, I don't see it. That is why the problem is. When you say God, what do you mean by it? They say, what do you mean by it? You're the creator. Come on, the creator, because we are used to the habit of analyzing the case within the things having relationship with each other, not arranged by a conscious being. Or is it arranged by a conscious being? Does it need to be arranged by a conscious being? We don't ask this question. I have been, in this education system, definitely I spent almost 30 years. Yeah, really 30 years. I've never seen any discipline of science or subject that I have studied mentioning about how the things are coming like this and happening like this. There must be something. There must be an author of this book of the universe. I've never heard this. Later on, of course, I understood that my brain is conditioned with this way of reasoning. I said, how about psychology? Really, it happened to me. I took a book in psychology, but the book is the textbook studied in school, secular education. Only in one subject, one sentence, I don't know how, I think the author wasn't aware of what the crime he was committing. He said, this is done, prepared by something. Otherwise, you cannot explain it. And it didn't say explicitly like this. But I said, there is only one sentence referring to something other than the matter itself. It means the letters of the book itself. Somebody arranged it. For example, we are reading now, let's say a single person, yeah? Let's say the simple word person, Person. This cannot happen by itself. It is the conscious organizer, the one who has chosen this. That is human-made, we understand. That is why the problem, the source of problem is here. We think of the author of the universe should be like a human being, not conscious human being. But conscious human being cannot write two letters at the same time. One after one, must follow. So I adapt this understanding, directly copy-paste on the notion of God and say, how many gods? Especially Muslims are crazy. One God, one God. They know I give it. So Christians are a bit flexible. Three something. Jews also are very crazy. One God. That's it. So in this sense, Islamic teaching is really very much close to the Jewish tradition. And it is legal laws, etc., practices of what you believe, and giving a certain shape to your life is really very, lots of things are familiar with, similar with Christian and Jewish understanding. So one God, doing everything, writing the book, and all letters, all sentences, all pages, chapters, everything all together at once. And some crazy people like our people, our brothers, sisters here in the room, we keep telling this. You know, this book is written at once. At once, all of them at once. And not enough. Really crazy. Every moment, different book is written. And every moment is happening at once. What do you mean? Because our mind is conditioned. We don't understand. Because we are looking in the things itself in terms of with human capacity. If the creator is a conscious being, if it is has a kind of free will to choose, to decide and give priority or leave it for the second time to create, it must have absolutely free choice, free will. And then we say, okay, like human beings, you know, we have also, how can he do one thing at once, but trillions, I mean, innumerable number of things are perfectly arranged. And also they are changing perfectly in a well-established order at every moment. Wow, really impossible. That's what the contradiction is introduced in the first paragraph, saying that the universality of the action, oneness of the agent. If someone doesn't really give up this conditioned, washed brain of thinking that we have to think within this universe and nothing that we should refer to, and especially if we happen to refer it for any reason because of the effect of our family culture, the social effect, the civilization says there is then reality out there which is called religion. They say there is God. We start thinking about God in terms of a huge human being. And we cannot get out of this meaningless understanding that doesn't make sense at all. Contradiction, universality, but one source. Of course, the author gives the example which I appreciated the moderator to read the example given here so that we can understand. The example of the sun is in here. But we very crucial word is reflection, representation, not physical action, but whereas likening the creator, which is called in the religious language God, likening the originator of this universe to a big human being, it is impossible to understand the universality of the action of the creator. Well, how are we going to get out of it? We have to say, look, this universe requires, necessitates for my mind an agent, conscious agent. But this conscious agent is not, in a simple language, like me, because I am a created being, needy being. I am not creating. Even the author of the book is not the creator of the book. What he does, he utilizes what is already created, right? Now, there are some friends here that the subject was related to our introductory discussion. I didn't know, I didn't mean it. Just this is the very base. But that's why we were talking about it before the discussion started. We have to get rid of this mind. And also we have to get rid of one thing as well, which is very dangerous. Oh man, how can I get rid of the religion I heard in the culture? Wow, am I going to be a denier? No. Leave it there, leave it there. First, understand what do I mean when I say the creator. When I say oneness of the creator, because I cannot say that there are creators as many as to the number of each action. They're impossible to imagine. Every letter of the book has an independent author, different from each other. How can I going to get together to make understand with each other, obey each other, but at the same time impose their own ideas, so that this contradiction again, subject to the others' wills, choices, but at the same time impose your own choice on others. Logically contradictory. Yeah, so, I mean, meaningless things to say. So that is why religious sources claim that there must be only one source. But this source is not like of the universe. That is very essential. We have to keep reminding ourselves that this universe must have a source which is not like any of the pieces of the book. Author is a human being, has another level of existence, but book is another level of existence. Book needs to be written. Author must be the one, because I have seen the author, must be the one who wrote it. Who is it? I don't care. The one who wrote it. And this one wrote the whole book as a single being. But because it is a created being again, so it has to follow time and obey the laws, etc. But how about the creator of the universe? By definition, it must be an absolute being. Absolute means you cannot represent him with a number, any kind of number. The biggest number is not absolute number. At the end of the day, it is the multiplication of 1, 2, 3, nothing else. So simple. So the creator of the universe should settle down in our understanding that we can get rid of this conditioned way of reasoning that the things are interrelated to each other by themselves, and it happened to be another crazy idea it is impossible to confirm, to agree with, accidentally, random happenings. Random happening in the universe. I don't see any random happening in the universe. Everything is perfect, arranged, perfect. Everything is obeying the perfect order. Nothing random at all. So we have to introduce to ourselves the very Quranic word, which is reflection, tajalli. God introduced in the story of the prophet Moses in the Quran. Of course, this is story, but reality, really, real thing for me, says, Moses says, which my sense also say the same thing. I want to see you, God, to make sure. Really, you are there. He said, no, you cannot see me. But one of the letters of the book saying that I want to see you, author. Impossible. Because existential nature is nothing to do with each other. One of them is paper and ink. The other one is human being. That is example. Author gives the sun example. One sun lights everywhere at the same time with no difficulty. Why? Reflection. Reflection of its qualities. What makes a sun is light, heat, and color. So in every creature, we see that sun in its light, in its heat, in its color reflected. At the same time, the day changes, the world changes, it doesn't change. Example again, sun also is a created being within the universe. But when we say the source of existence of this universe, every example fails. Sun is not absolute, but it is just an parable, or not parable really, metaphor, example. But the creator must be absolute. Otherwise, I cannot explain the existence of this universe. It doesn't make sense. And really, it makes me mad. Meaningless existence in this world if there was no an absolute source of existence of this universe. I think we have to check ourselves while we are also not speaking to ourselves and analyzing the situation, questioning the existence, the nature of existence by ourselves. While we are speaking to others also, we have to know that your addressee, the one you are having a conversation, has an conditioned mind. It thinks in terms of causal chain and only that. When it comes to existence of the things, that is why existence of the things, paying attention to the existence of the things is essential. That's why we have to start from the very basic ground and say, how do you explain the existence of anything? Existence within itself. So we have to analyze the creation of the things at the space. Existence is everything to me. So that we can jump from there easily and see that the absolute is acting in this universe. That is very, very satisfactory to me, because I say, oh, my existence belongs to an absolute being. No worry. I'm getting old, who cares? He's making me. He brought me in this way. And he will take me away, none of my business. Because I'm not going to manipulate my life. Everything is in his hand. He's manipulating it. I have to take care of the opportunity he has given to me, free will. That's so simple. What I am choosing, pay attention to it. That's it. What I am choosing, whether it makes sense to me, it is acceptable, confirmable by my really intelligence or not. That is the base of belief in an absolute being. And also all the aspects of the universe which refers to this absolute being, necessarily existent one. There must be so, there must be so. Did I see God? No, at all. But I have seen him in his act. His act is the witness. Thank you. Sorry, it's sort of a long introduction, basic introduction, but although we keep repeating it in this room, but we also keep hearing that religion is taken for granted and presented to already the people have already declared that he is following a certain religious tradition. What is going on in the church and the synagogue and the mosques? You are believing people. But yeah, that's right. For there, it is correct. But for us, we have to understand what are we talking about, really. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think continuing from what you were saying, we can try to understand more what the word representation means, which the author does. He describes that there are 3 levels of representation. So let's see the first. The first says, this is the reflection.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
I missed out something very important. Moses, in the Quranic example, Moses wanted to see God, and he said, can I see you? He said, no, you cannot see me. But it is extremely important narration. I mean, we are not reading the narration, but really we are reading the guide how we should do it. And then in the Quran says, God said to Moses, look at the mountain. That is very important. Why? Look at my work. If you want to understand me. Don't be prejudiced about, yeah, I've seen God, I believe in God. Absurd. You cannot see. Absolute. If it was possible to see absolute, then it is not absolute. It is limited. You have seen it. The beginning and the end. Absolute, no beginning, no end, no shape, nothing. But absolute, infinite. So that is important. Look at my work, mountain. And it says God reflected his qualities on the mountain. Mountain was totally subject to his reflection, obeyed his reflection, Mountain cannot do anything. Atom cannot do anything by itself. It is just subject to the order of the universe, which is the will of the absolute being. Only he can establish this world, an absolute being. This universe can only be the work of an absolute being. No other way that my human reasoning can accept. So that was important. Look at the mountain. Extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess my question here would be then, what did he see when he looked at the mountain, or what does the mountain resemble, I guess?
Anything existent in the world.
Okay.
The
Thank
word
you.
tajalli that you mentioned, Brother Ali, that's signified by all the work.
Yeah. The Quran uses
Yeah.
tejalli there.
All the evidence.
Tejalli. But tejalli, not handmade. Tejalli, no hand. Willed and happens. It must be so. It must be so.
Thank you very much. There's a question, I think a mountain crumble also might mean that it cannot stand against his will. And then right, question mark. I mean, it cannot stand against his will. I think my immediate answer would be, well, nothing really cannot stand against his will. But I feel my answer is very superficial. If you'd like to explain, or if someone wants to answer the question. Okay. I'll move on, and if you have additional questions, let me know. Okay, so studying the representations, the first level, it says this is the reflection of dense physical objects. These reflections are both other than the thing reflected. These reflections are both other than the thing reflected. They are not the same, and they are dead, without life. They possess no quality other than their apparent identity. For example, if you enter a store full of mirrors, one side will become thousands of sides, but the only living one is you. All the others are dead. They possess none of the characteristics of life. Okay, so if I enter a store and it has a lot of mirrors, my image will be reflected in all the mirrors. But there's only one living being, which is me. Everything else is dead, because they don't possess any of the characteristics of life. They're just reflecting whatever comes their way, the mirrors, of course. Okay, let me know if any questions come up for this part. The second, this is the reflection of physical luminous objects. This reflection is not the same as the thing reflected, but neither is it other than it. Okay, it's not the same as the thing reflected, but neither is it other than it. It does not hold the luminous object's nature, but it possesses most of its characteristics and may be considered as living. So in the first, it was all the objects were dead, only one living, what should we call it? I guess I'm just gonna call it living thing, but that's a bad word for it. But I'll call it one living thing, and everything else did. For the second, they're not dead. Some of them may be considered as living because they have some of the characteristics. Example: the sun entered the world and displayed its reflection in all mirrors. Present in each of the reflections are light and the 7 colors in light, which are like the sun's qualities. Let us suppose the sun possessed consciousness, and its heat was pure power, its light pure knowledge, and its 7 colors the 7 attributes. The single sun would be present in all mirrors at one moment, and would be able to make each a throne for itself and sort of the telephone. One mirror would not be an obstacle to another. It would be able to meet with all of us by means of our mirrors. While we are distant from it, it would be closer to us than ourselves. Okay. I'm going to read the sun's example again. Let us suppose the sun possessed consciousness, and its heat was pure power, its light pure knowledge, and its 7 colors the 7 attributes. The single sun would be present in all mirrors at one moment, and would be able to make each a throne for itself and a sort of telephone. Oh, it's almost like it's the sun. I mean, in the example, of course, the sun is employing other things, the objects, right? Or the mirrors. One mirror would not be an obstacle to another. It would be able to meet with all of us by means of our mirrors. While we are distant from it, I'm thinking it here refers to the sun, it would be closer to us than ourselves. Okay. Any questions here? Or do you want to share your understanding? Okay, we have a comment. To understand more, we can think that mirror which reflects light, heat, 7 color, does not have fire in it. Okay. I guess the way I understand it is the sun is reflecting, yes, in many mirrors. Reflections here also have some of the characteristics. Which will then allow the mirrors to be able to display or use these characteristics. And the mirrors would not be an obstacle to one another. Okay. Oh, we have a comment here. It starts with a verse from chapter 7, verse number 143. And when Moses came to our appointment, and his Lord spoke to him, he said, "My Lord, allow me to look and see you." He said, "You will not see me, but look at the mountain. If it stays in its place, you will see me." But when his Lord manifested himself to the mountain, he turned it into dust, and Moses fell down unconscious. Then when he recovered, he said, "Glory be to you, I repent to you, and I am the first of the believers."
I think the Moses' falling down unconscious is changing the perspective of thinking of God as we are used to in this world. Now, I am used to analyzing the agent of anything in terms of another being of this universe, but with a higher quality of existence, capacity of existence, like human beings and their actions, like cat and it is action catching the mouse, like this. So he just abandoned all this approach and refreshed himself. You say, I believe now. It is very important to understand this verse in the Quran, a Quranic verse. It says, let me go to the original text. Now, فَلَمَّا تَجَلَّى رَبُّهُ. The word is تَجَلَّى. So, وَخَرَّ مُوسَى صَعِيدًا. Anyways, we are not studying Arabic text here. So, فَلَمَّا أَفَاقَ, when he said, look, I have to change my pattern of thinking. When he realized this, قال سبحانك, it means, oh, absolute being. I cannot describe you. It is impossible. I understood. I was thinking of you in terms of any created being, but that huge something. No, subhanak. It is impossible to describe. Tubti ilayka. I'm sorry. I was thinking of it in wrong terms and asking you to appear in front of me. In fact, don't feel that I am insulting Moses. It's a silly question, but he didn't know. He didn't know. After he realized that he has to think in terms of reflection, manifesting his qualities on the creation, he said, oh, I'm sorry, I repent. But وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Now, mu'min means in the Quran, the one who is convinced of his reality that he belongs to an absolute being, and this absolute being cannot be conceivable. It is inconceivable. That is what waking up. That is why we have to wake up as well. That is a wake-up call from this verse. We have to refresh our mind, and really it's very important to get rid of this analyzing the things in terms of causal chain. Of course, if I am studying the universe, if I am aiming at to make a computer, I have to analyze the causal chain and imitate the order of the universe, how it really functions. But this mind, which is called scientific mind, should have double target, double object. One is, yes, I'm going to utilize this universe, which is called as scientific discoveries, researches. That is correct. That needs to be done by human beings. To understand the quality of the book, you have to read it. You have to get the meaning. But afterwards, you have to say, always keep in mind that this book cannot happen by itself. It must have an author. This side is not in the today's 20th century's interpretation of the scientists' minds. Some of them, not all. Of course, from one aspect, they are doing the right thing, reading the universe. From another aspect, they are ignoring the source of existence of the things they are studying. Well, how come they exist? They don't exist much. It happened to be like this. It is always like this. For example, I have inherited a book from my father, let's say, and I keep reading it. And if someone says, there must be an author, no, I got it from my father. It has always been like this here. That's simplistic, childish mind that the people who don't believe in God, it means really I confirm the existence of God although I cannot see him because he cannot be seen within the conditions of this universe. The reason is this. He realized that these kind of examples of the Quran in the form of story, they are jewelry. Really, each of them is including it's a huge jewelry box telling me many things that it never occurred to me. Oh, that is the wonder of the Quran. Of course, it must be the Creator's speech, because only the Creator can talk in this way, instruct human beings, guide human beings in this way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can stop here today and continue our discussion next time. But let me read the comment, and Agabe, then you can share your thoughts. In this ayah, I'm not sure what the word is, but in parentheses it says crumble to dust, mean it just disappeared to show that he is the cause of everything?
Obey the order directly. Didn't stand up against the manifestations of the Creator's qualities. Couldn't stand up. Completely subjected itself, the mountain itself, to his will. That is the only option every creature has, even human beings. I cannot really act on my own choice. Thank you. Not disappeared, or we have to be very careful. Some of the translators using funny language, God, impossible to accept, but they have good intention. Of course, we appreciate their effort, but at the same time, we have to look whether what they say really makes sense or not. Okay? We can stop it, I think.
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Agabe, did you still want to share something very quickly before we hang up?
No, thanks. Just it was that.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's stop here. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.